Welcome. Hi, this is Carol from Skill Check. And today I wanted to bring someone special to you to talk to you about life in general and self-storage. And Alex Braun is here, the second. And we're going to be talking to him about what he does in self-storage. We had some great conversations in Hawaii. So I thought that this would be a great time to talk to Alex and see what we can do to just chat about life, I guess. How's it going, Alex?
It's going really well. It's
Good.
going, business is going better than we anticipated coming into the slow season. So we're excited about that.
Yeah. So what do you think as far as storage in general? How are we doing, do you think, faring at this point?
I think we're gonna, everybody's gonna take a little bit of a dip with the kind of a recession looming and kind of we're going into it. But I think compared to other businesses, we're gonna be very resilient. I think it's not going to be as good as the last couple of years where we had a lot of increases in occupancy, a lot of increases in revenue. I think it'll be more stabilization and trying to keep things in line rather than, all the great increases that we've seen over the last couple of years.
Yeah. So Ann Ballard and I were just chit-chatting and she was showing her numbers. She's like a super person on numbers with all her stores and stuff. She's crazy good with that. And she was showing how she outperformed the public companies
Wow.
and just her portfolio. I think she's got 87 stores. And it was interesting looking at what she had because she had actually I believe for the very first time, one of them outperformed them, but it was only by a couple of, percentage points. But it is interesting how we normally kind of follow the lead of those people that are in public realm. And I think that it's interesting, even with our pricing and things like that, how we do what we do every day and trying to make it go see what we're going to do, obviously COVID happened and we thought, oh boy, here's this bad problem. What are we going to do? We flourished. So now we've got a recession and I think we've said in the past, people have talked about storage as being a bit recession proof. But I noticed, we were on a big Zoom just recently and the managers had said, listen, we're seeing some downturn a little bit, not a lot, but it's just not as much movement as they were seeing. So, but
I
go
would say
ahead.
we're more recession resistant than recession proof. I remember in 2008 when the housing market really affected our business. I think country, the nation, overthrew the nation, all facilities maybe dropped down occupancy somewhere between 5 and 10 percentage points.
Right.
But we were still stable. The way that our business operates and our profit margins and our expense ratio allows us to absorb that. And that was a bigger recession than what we're kind of going into now, or supposed to be. So I think this hopefully will just kind of be a bump in the road rather than, an obstacle, which is kind of what it was in 2008.
Yeah. Alex, it's interesting because I think sometimes because I train managers a lot, I've had a lot of managers. I think one of the things that I tried to get across to them was our goal was never to be 100% occupied. It really should be revenue driven. And I try to incentivize them that way. I never do an incentive based on getting to 100% occupancy. I just do it all on income. So, and I think even if we dropped a bit in occupancy, we could still keep up the income if we just continue to improve our rates and not leave people for several years. And literally, sometimes I look and I'm like, these people haven't had a rent increase for 5 years. It just seems like we've got to be more attentive to our rates.
I completely agree. I've never been a believer in lowering rates when occupancy drops, just because you want to have some inventory to rent in the future, but you want to have that revenue stack based on the rates that you're charging. And I know, everybody wants to be 100%. Not everybody. Some want to be 100% full, and they think that's like the pinnacle when actually they're leaving money on the table, because you can make the same money being 80% full, but having higher rates than being 100% full at lower rates. But then now there's no inventory to rent.
Right.
And so there's money being left on the table.
Yes. And I think that's one of the things, especially as an auditor in self-storage. I I go and I audit stores and they're like, hey, we're at 98%. Well, yes, but you're only bringing in money if you were 75. And
Exactly.
and then they're like, well, that's only because they told us to do that. Or, or we thought this special would be, we just continue this special. Like, yeah, but it's hurting the property. And you don't see that because you're only looking at the occupancy of it and not the income as occupancy. And that's why I like that economic occupancy number, because it
Yes,
really does talk about, what it's making in dollars and not in, just in occupancy itself.
exactly. Exactly. It's all about looking at the revenue generation. How much are you making at the end of the day is what's
Yeah.
important. It's
So
the taxation on occupancy that kind of throws things off.
So your units that you have, I find it so fascinating because I know in years past, I've worked and helped Mobile Mini years and years ago in the 80s. And it was it was a little difficult sometimes getting people wanting to put something into a container versus the traditional, but it wasn't out too far out there. But we tended to at first get more business or construction companies,
Mhm.
businesses that had wanted extra stuff. It's like if you go by Target or Walmart, they're full of containers, right? Because that's all the Christmas stuff or whatever they put there while the Christmas stuff's there, or whatever, or just whatever they've got waiting to be put on the shelves again.
Well, a lot of businesses right now are reconfiguring their layout of their stores. So they
Yeah.
need a number of containers to pull stuff out of the store to reconfigure everything in the store and the layout and how they want
Yes.
to display their items. And so you'll see a number of whether it's Target or whether it's Walmart or even other stores with a number of containers outside because they've got so many things they have to pull out of the store to to redesign the layout.
Yeah. And do you get big companies like that using your units too?
From time to time, we
Mhm.
try to pull contracts. Sometimes they'll want the larger Connex boxes.
Yeah.
Um, they're larger, but they're harder to transport.
Right.
So
Oh, yes. Yeah.
some of those contracts.
Yeah. And I what and I think that yeah, sometimes they're just not as easy to deal with as the regular customers that we have. Right. They want a bigger discount or whatever because they're Walmart or whatever. So, but I do find so these you're getting in and then you're putting them together once you get there, and customers like them.
They do. They
Yeah.
do. We've seen kind of an evolution of the customer and the customer base that needs storage. With everything coming to the customer, no matter what it is, whether it's
Right.
Amazon, whether it's Grubhub, whether it's Carvana, whether it's
Yes.
Eats, there's this expectation of things coming to the customer. Now, self storage is not going to go anywhere, but it's not necessarily immune to what the desire of the growing customer base,
Right.
which is the product coming to them. And so we seen this as an opportunity to kind of attract a larger uh, customer base and at the same time position ourselves to what's going to be maybe the norm in the future.
Right.
Especially with Generation Z and millennials, doing everything on their phone, having everything come to them, you know, the storage can do the same thing. And with
Hmm.
the way housing is being built, um, housing is being built to where there's not a lot of storage. There's
Right.
these family complexes, huge complexes in metropolitan areas or downtown and things of that nature, where two, three, four, 500 units, where they're going to put their stuff.
Right.
So we provide a solution for those. At the same time, we have self storage as well for those who want the traditional storage. So
Yes.
this kind of diversified our portfolio, but we look at it as we got into this business to say, can this make us better self storage operators?
Hmm.
And we found the opposite to be true. Our self storage experience made us better portable storage operators.
Isn't that funny? Yeah.
It really was. It really
Yeah.
was. And so it's been a interesting journey over the last 3 years once we got into portable storage business and
Yeah.
added that to our portfolio.
I was on training agents, so I'd be live with them with the customer. And so this customer called and it was in the Bay Area and they said, hey, we've got our stuff in a container, and we wanted to see if, you had a 10 by 20 that we could put the stuff in. And yes, we had a 10 by 20, but then they said, but can we drop the units off there? And so the person the agent was totally confused. But see, I knew what they were talking about. So I messaged him saying, put it on hold. So I said, yes. So she put the customer on hold. I said, they've got a container that's got stuff in it. They want to know if you can put it at the property. And it's a problem sometimes, because when they want to put that container there and then like empty it over a week or a month, right?
Yeah.
It just sits there and it's a pain. And I did say, well, you would have to call the manager, because if it was maybe on the end of the building, they might allow you to do that. Or if they had car parking, they might allow you to put it there until you moved all this stuff like that. But trying to explain that to an agent, it was a little undaunting. We're like, because I was like, if we don't get back, the customer is going to hang up. So they finally said, you know what, maybe we'll see what we can do. And then they were going to get the manager to call the customer to see if they could put the units there, the units.
Yeah.
But
And I remember
ahead.
having those challenges being, when I was operating a few self-storage facilities, the same thing where we wanted to bring containers, and it's like, well, you can't put that in front of the units. You can't have that in the driveway.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
there's all these different, it was such a foreign thing in the beginning, and now it's becoming
Yes.
a lot.
Yeah, I know the lady that cleaned my house for years and years. She moved and she said, okay, you're the all moving expert. So and then we got her a pod here, and then she went to Ohio. But it was so interesting because she had so many questions. I said, listen, it's way easier if you just use the pods, because she couldn't get the truck and do all of it. And she called me back up. She goes, that was the easiest thing ever. So she was so thrilled with it, because she was just like, wow, that just works so well. But I think when people get stuff like this, it's just, once the stuff is in there and it's out and it's in the warehouse and it's easy to do, it's very manageable, and it's in a really generally cleaner environment and better environment than a lot of storage places, right?
It really is.
Yeah.
There's a convenience factor, and there's an enhanced security and
Yes.
climate factor that comes with it, because you're in a secure warehouse. These containers are stacked on top of each other, which
Right.
makes them almost impossible to get into. And there's so many different stages of security that we have within our warehouses. And then it eliminates a lot of the inconvenience of moving and storage, to where
Mhm.
you're not dealing with a
Yes.
U-Haul truck. You don't have to
Right.
have that clock running. Got to get the truck back, get it
Back.
charged per
Yeah.
mile.
Right.
Everything didn't fit in the truck. We bring the container, you load it up at your own leisure. Once you have everything packed, we do the delivery for you, and it can go wherever you want it to go, whether you want it to go to your new house, whether you're moving to locally or you're moving long distance, whether you just want it there so your storage is with you rather
Right.
than it being stored somewhere else. Or if you don't have the capabilities of being stored with you, we can store it at our warehouse. And when you need to come
Yeah.
see your items, just let us know. We'll pull it down, and you'll be able to have the same access as you would with self-storage.
Yeah. I also think the CCNRs, the different homeowner associations they're now saying, if you have a pod, they're addressing it at least. If you
Mhm.
have a pod, it can be there 48 hours, or,
Yes.
some kind of, or you have to let them know, and then they'll give you an extension or something like that. But at least I know in my area, they've said we allow those, but you absolutely need to make sure you let us know if it goes beyond the 48-hour time period, or it's got to be in your driveway or something like that, not impeding traffic or something.
And that's what's kind of great about what we do, and particularly that makes us unique with units, is we have a delivery system that can put the container almost anywhere, to where we don't have some of the same restrictions. You want it in your backyard, you can get it in your backyard if there's room for the container to get there.
Yeah.
We can put it under carports. We can
Yeah.
put it, with certain spots within driveways in the side yard. And so our customers tend to have less problems with their homeowners associations or with the city, because of the capabilities of what we're able to do
Hmm.
with our delivery system.
Hmm. It really is a lot easier than renting a truck, for sure.
Yes.
It's just another move in and move out process, right? You're moving in and out of something else before you put it into the storage unit. So
And the
or
great thing
wherever.
about not having to use a truck is you're not handling your items so many times.
Yes.
You take it out of your garage, you put it in the truck, you take it out of the truck, you put it in the storage. You're putting it directly in the storage, and the storage is moving, which is
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and I notice we've had a lot less problems with anything, any rodents. I mean, it just seemed like there was less active other weirdness happening. And I agree, the break-ins, no, there's so many different aspects of it that really are better than self-storage.
When people are storing, they're worried about two things. One, their items, and two, when they have to go to their items.
Yeah.
And it's really, you want people to feel secure and safe for their stuff and for when they go to their stuff. And that's what really gets people to rent at different places rather than others.
Yeah.
It's people think it's price sensitive, and it's more perceived trust. If they
Yes.
feel comfortable and they feel comfortable with the manager and comfortable with the facility, it supersedes all the other reasons that people
Mhm.
want to, you know.
I will say one of the things that I noticed at the call center was it's a lot less about price than people think. Because sometimes people called up and said, what was the price? But that wasn't there. Or do you have such and stuff available? But it was just all of the other things that they asked that end up being way more important than that, whatever it was, whatever their issue was. But it is interesting that we are in such a flux as people and moving, and a lot of things happening, and even with businesses, a lot of businesses gave up their regular office buildings and things like that, where so many people are at home. So the people that are at home now are saying, wait a minute, now I have to have two dedicated offices, sort of, or something like, or at least one for one of us is working. I mean, even with my kids, in my house, we have two areas that are completely just offices.
Yeah, and that's kind of created an extra demand for storage, and
Yep.
that's kind of really surged because of COVID. People have to have these home offices. People are working
Mhm.
from home, so they got to clean out that garage. They got to clean out that extra bedroom.
Yeah.
They need to clean out that clutter, that
Yes.
they have to then make space to be able to work. So where's all? But they don't want to get rid of their stuff.
Yes.
Where's
Right.
it? Where's it going to go?
Yeah, and we have a lot more things being stored from a garage or from those areas. I know it's like it's a different, such an interesting dynamic of how we've had to change so much to working from home. I mean, Desiree and I were just talking about, trying to get a hold of people sometimes when they're at home working. I
Mhm.
mean, before it was like, you were in the office and you yelled at somebody. Right
Yeah.
now, it's like, okay, well, they're not near their computer. Well, they're not near their phone. I don't know where they're at. So it is, the dynamics are different for sure. And I don't
Yes.
know where that's going, but I don't think it's going away. Do you?
I don't think so. I think some of these changes are going to become permanent, and some of them are going to go back to the way they were.
Yeah.
And it's really going to depend on certain industries' business models, on
Right.
how it affects efficiency. Can they still be as efficient on how they're operating? And that's now businesses are going to start to evaluate that. Now, if they're starting to see inefficiencies, they're going to start to go back to the way. But a lot of these businesses are saving a ton of money not having these huge buildings and offices to run the lights, to run the air conditioner, to run the security, they're actually paying people more to be at home because they're saving so much more by not having these huge buildings that they have. So which is going to put a strain on certain real estate segments. Some of the commercial real estate is going to suffer from that.
Oh,
Not the
yes.
storage aspect, but
Right.
some of the other commercial real estate is definitely going to suffer.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't think that's all going back. Do you? I mean, they
I
may
don't
have
think.
to look of something else to make that, because I just don't see some of those companies going back. I know several storage companies that they're like, well, there's some people that are not coming back. And we
Yeah,
yet the office is open, but they're not coming back. And they said, hey, please, can I just work from home? It's easier or whatever.
and that's where technology and automation
Mhm.
and those are things of that nature come into play, to where there's going to be a a reliance on technology to fill that gap, to fill that void.
Right.
And what does that mean for labor? That's to be determined.
Yeah. Were you at that California Self Storage Association meeting in Napa? Did you go?
Yes.
Do you remember? I think it was in Napa. The guy that had the ring, and you would just pay everything by your ring. Do you remember?
Yes. I've seen that.
And then Bill Hoban stands up and he's like, I don't know if the ring thing's going to work. but it
Exactly.
but it is weird where the technology, I mean, we're going through so many new ideas and new things, but our business, the storing of people's goods and the services that we do around that, I still think people will have lots of stuff. We're stuff people.
We're stuff people, and
Yeah.
now the access to order stuff is so
Oh
easy.
man.
Before, if you wanted to get something, you go to the store and you got to go find it.
Oh yeah. Not anymore, right?
Not anymore. You find it on your phone, and sometimes it's hard to get rid of all the boxes that all the stuff comes in.
Yes. Yes.
That
That
becomes
is crazy, isn't it? I know. Sometimes I think, oh, I'm being so wasteful. They shipped this and that, and it could have gone with. And I do try to with Amazon say the least boxes or whatever because I don't need it all tomorrow. I just so I have it for the next week or so. I'm good.
So that access to items and things coming to the customer is just going to even create more and more demand for our types of services that we offer.
Yes, and that's why I think even units, you guys are really feeding into that because, and I know you've been around a long time. It's not saying you haven't, but it just seems like that even attests to what we can do with our stuff, all the stuff we're buying, and what we do with it. I know my mom. I don't know if I said this, but my mom passed away recently, and my sister and I. My sister is definitely a don't save anything. She said she's like perfect in her house. Everything is organized in every drawer. Everything. It's so crazy. That is not happening at my house. Okay, I'm just saying. But we're totally different. But it's so interesting because we were looking at stuff and I'm like, no. And my sister's like, you want this, don't you? And I said, I'd love to have it, but I don't know where I'd put it, that I'd ever use it again or whatever. I just can't. I just know. And my kids are like, oh, we could use this. I'm like, nope, nope. It's going to get in the house and we're not going to use it. No. I feel like because I'm in the storage industry, I just feel like I don't want anything extra. I don't need it. And if it, yeah, and I know I don't know if you heard this story, but we were looking at houses. I needed a house big enough to put my piano in.
Okay.
I have a big old piano. And so it's a baby grand, but it's still big. And it's like, oh, it takes up kind of a little room here. And it's a player one too. So it
Okay.
plays itself, so which is really awesome at party time. But the weird thing is my daughter's like, okay, we've got, because she had a storage place that's right by. She goes, Mom, we've got a 10 by 10. It would be perfect for it. I said, well, 10 by 10. No, I'm not paying for a 10 by 10 for that piano. She said, what do you mean it's not going to get into smaller? I said, Alex, they close it all up and they, stand it up. They don't move it like that. They wouldn't even get it through the door. So it was I was like, and she's like, oh, I didn't know that. It's like, she's pretty young still, but it's weird that I knew that if it got in there, I'd never get it back out. It'd be calling someone, getting him back out here. It just, so.
That's the beauty of running a storage business is, yeah, once people put their stuff in there, the customer intent and customer stay are just two wildly different things.
Yes. And when they say you're, how long do you think you're going to stay if, you do a survey when they move in? Oh, they just way surpass whatever they think, right? It's just too much
Absolutely.
hassle. Yeah.
It
That's the
is.
beauty of it though.
As much as people think storage is this kind of storage and its own thing, we provide a service for the community.
Yep.
And we're much as involved with the community as many other businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And so there may be something where, we can be involved with other community organizations to help them provide services. Like, for example, our property in San Leandro, we have an RV section of our property.
Mm-hmm.
And with the RV is a dump station. And there's a company that uses our dump station regularly that provides but there's some mobile shower and cleaning stations for homeless.
Wow. That's interesting, isn't it? And then they use your dump station.
They use our dump
That's
station.
awesome.
And so, how do we get involved with the other businesses that are helping uh,
Hmm.
homeless community to then, provide more services to
Right.
then, like I said, minimize what's the homeless. I don't want to call them the homeless population, but
Yeah.
when you minimize people who have to be homeless
Right.
and then become uh, part of regular society and not have to
Mhm.
live on the streets.
Yeah, there's one thing I've always worried about with my kids is just getting hooked on drugs because I think that's what leads you to that path. And it's not all, I mean,
Yeah.
even I never want to get to the point where I tell my kids, you can't live here anymore. Though I might say it soon. I got a 19-year-old and a 20-year-old still here. But I I think they're still young to go out on their own. I mean, it's tough. It's tough to do unless you're,
Yes.
making enough to be able to support yourself. And I don't, at this point, they're not at that place. But I I don't know. I know that as an industry, we are trying a lot of things, I think, to help people and besides ourselves. Right, I think there are, and
Yeah.
especially managers out there that try to, I know managers are interesting, and I know we've got it, there's a weird line where you can't do too much but you still want to help
It's interesting to really talk about like where we see storage going
going.
in the next year or so.
What do
Um,
you think? What do you think's happening?
um, I think we're gonna see somewhat of a downturn, but it's we got to provide some context with that because it's gonna look like a bigger downturn compared to the last year or two, which was really up. But if
Phenomenal.
we had a normal business cycle from last year, this year would be a little bit of a downturn.
Yeah.
Something normal, and so it's going to be interesting to see how all of us change and our operations to deal with what's coming,
Hmm.
because it's not going to be uh, as great as it was.
Right.
So, how are we going to embrace technology? How are we going to change our operations? What are we going to do with the labor component? How are we going to, make the key differences so when things turn up again, we can
Right.
then maximize on that revenue when it does shoot up. And that's what the key is about this business is making the proper adjustments when things are going down to then take the full advantage when things are going up.
Right.
Those are the ones
That's
that
true.
thrive.
Yeah, that's interesting. And knowing that, because I will say, because I interact with really big companies and then just small operators, but so many of the small operators, we when Desiree and I were doing an audit for a guy a while back, and um, he said he hadn't done a rent increase in like 4 or 5 years. I'm like, why?
Why? And especially to miss out over the last couple of years when you could have done substantial rate increases.
Yes, and besides the not increasing the rates, the managers were discounting the heck out of the store, and he couldn't understand why they weren't doing as well. And I was like, in this environment, there should be no reason why that would be true. And then I said, but look, you can look, and they've got multiple different they've got you know how you have a military discount, or you have another move-in discount, or some senior citizen, they lop them all on. They'd give us, oh, they're a senior and they're military. And I'm like, no, no. I mean, it's just stupid sometimes.
That's the kind of the good and bad about this business is that it has such a low overhead.
Mm.
It had so many operators just put their business on cruise control,
Yes.
and they can take whatever things could go wrong, but they're still going to be profitable. But they don't realize how much more profitable they could really have been, how much money was left on the table because they weren't in tune with their operation. While other businesses, you don't have that luxury. You're in the
Right.
restaurant business, your margins are slim. If you're
Yes.
not operating efficiently, you'll go out of business. If you're
Yeah.
in retail, same
Same.
scenario.
Yep.
We're not selling a product, we're selling space.
Space
With
and time. Yeah. For
space
time.
and
Yep.
time, which do you know is we don't have spoilage. We don't
Right,
have, we don't have just in time
right,
operations or production and things of that nature. We're not sitting on a bunch of, well, product.
right.
If we're sitting on empty containers, we're sitting on inventory, but
Yes.
we can rent it. And it's really down to two basic components of how well are you marketing, how well are you running it.
Hmm.
And if you do those things, you can have a great business. But on the flip side, if you don't do those things, you can still be, you can still stay afloat and not go out of business, but
Right.
you're just kind of hurting yourself.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times people are like, oh, that storage is a cash cow. Like it can be, yes.
If
But
you
if you
do
don't manage it and run it correctly, it's could be a problem.
yes, exactly. And so that if other operators realize those things, that like there's so many just kind of just getting by. But if
Mhm.
more understood that, and then we came together more as a collective, we could all flourish.
Yes. I one of the things that I know, especially during the downturns that I've seen over the years, is when there was a downturn, I got more calls like from the bankruptcy court. They would call and say, "Hey, can you manage this for us?" And they would say, "How long do you think it'll take to get some improvement?" I said, uh, kind of on the outside, I'm looking at 6 months, but I think I can do it in 3. And they're
Mhm.
like, what? This person's had it all this time and they can't make it go. I said, yeah, because they had poor managers, no website, la, right? All the main things that we know that are so important in self-storage that sometimes owners think it, oh, I'll just build it and then put a manager there for life and it'll go. And I can tell you, even being an auditor, how many times that people have partners that they don't know about and the managers can steal thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah, the days of if you build it, they will come type of
No,
days. Those days have come
you're
and
gone.
gone. They're like,
It's
no,
true,
you
isn't
have to build it and you have to keep your eye on
it?
it, manage it, and market it.
Yes, absolutely. That's a good place to be, right? To know. Yeah, but I think that not everyone's good at all of those things. But again, now the way self-storage is, there are so many partners that you partner up with in storage that can help you with your website and
Yes.
do different things that you don't have to know everything. I think there's some owners that are still trying to, you look at their website and I was like, what the heck? I just did, they had this multi-million-dollar store that these people were opening in Scottsdale, and they have like a $10 website is what it looked like. It was horrible. It was just horrible. I was like, there's no, oh man, I was just like, you guys spent so much money on the property and you won't even spend several $1,000s a month even on your website, which you need to optimize. You need to do all these things to it. And they don't realize that, all these components, even if you have a great manager, if the phone's not ringing and there's no longer a phone book,
Yes.
right? So you got to have it. So your phone number has to be somewhere. I mean, sometimes you don't even see it on the outside of the building or anywhere around. So then what do you do, right? If you don't find it on the internet.
Exactly. See, the dynamics have changed.
Yes.
Like when I got into the storage industry 20 years ago, it was all about location,
Mm. Yep.
and your placement in the yellow pages.
Yep. Oh, yes. A
And if
double
you
truck ad I had to pay for.
exactly like you got to pay more money to double truck, and the negotiations with the yellow page people were,
Oh,
it was the worst. Like they just
yes.
had you over the barrel every time. It was just
Yep.
like, how much is going to cost me this year? How many tens of thousands? And
Yes.
I'm going to get a little closer to the front because whoever's in the front wins.
Right.
I'm curious to see what the next big thing in technology that can
Hmm.
change how we operate as a business. Um, a lot of the technology that storage has embraced has been hardware, whether it's,
Yes.
Nokia systems or whether it's different things in the offices. But I think software is where a lot of things are going to make some fundamental changes for us and how we operate. And whether that's artificial intelligence, if that changes how we operate as a business, is it
Hmm.
blockchain technology? Does that change how we operate as a business? You know, those things that can fundamentally completely change how we do things like the internet did. You
Right.
know, 20 years ago, we wouldn't think the internet and what it's doing now would have the effect that it's having at this
Right.
moment. We cannot survive without it.
Yeah.
Back then it was somewhat of a, I won't call it a fad, but it's like, that's nice, but we're doing other stuff. Now, there's some new things that are happening now in its infancy stage that the way the internet was 20, 30 years ago, that completely can change how we operate 5, 10 years.
Mhm. I think also even things like Bitcoin. I know there's some people a few years back that came to a storage place. I'm like, we're not ready for Bitcoin yet. we're
Yeah.
we have enough trouble watching the money we have coming in and out, like cash money going in and out, much less trying to figure out Bitcoin coin and how it's going to, how we would even translate that into storage rent amounts. And
But
yeah,
it's coming. Just like,
yes,
20 years ago, we'd say web-based program. No, we
yeah,
have to do it within our computers. What are you talking about?
yeah.
So it's being ready for those things. And
Hmm.
there are a number of places that are starting to experiment with it,
Right.
having them work those bugs out, and then saying, okay, how can we be better operators
Yeah.
by incorporating
And
it?
I think also, even though I'm old, I'm open to opportunities and that will make my life better and the customers' lives better. I'm just, I don't, and because I know my daughter has the Nokia stuff, I was like, oh, well, wait, when the power goes out, what are you going to do? All I was saying was, please be prepared to figure out how to open that door, if because the customers, even though the power's out, they may still want to get the generator in their unit.
Yes.
Right. So, and then she did call, saying, "Hey, how do I get in this?" I said, "Remember, did you said there was some kind of key? Did you not ever figure out how to use?" She goes, "Yeah, I'll find that key and figure it out." So I went down anyway and helped her. And I mean, I was like, well, here it is, and we fixed it and got it going. But the technology, I know my kids are way more looking for every easier way to do it than I am. I'm not adverse to doing sometimes the things a little harder way, but I see my kids are just totally different. They want the easiest, least contact with people.
Mhm.
I kind of like people. I prefer that, but I can see there are people that are coming up that do not really want to interact with others.
Well, that's how society has changed, to where everything, the emergence of social media has allowed people to communicate not in person but
Yeah.
online. And like, even if some of these kids get together and they're all sitting in a room on phones talking
Looking
to
at
each,
the phones. Yep.
looking at their phones, communicating with each other, when they, like, the way of communicating that we're used to is, it's kind of different.
Yes.
It's they're losing out on the interactions and nonverbal cues and
Hmm.
nonverbal communication skills. And so it makes them shun away from actually communicating with people face to face. Like, they get
Yes.
comfortable with it. They're comfortable with what they're used to, which is on their phones or their devices, which then creates a larger customer base that's going to be accustomed to that.
Yeah.
I would think it's a business that it's different, and I'm not going to say it's completely easy. It's sometimes it can maybe a little difficult to learn, but easy to get good at.
Yes. Yes.
You
And I
know,
think people are friendly and helpful and giving in this industry
absolutely.
about what they tell. And I mean, I try to help everyone I can.
Exactly. It's a great community. It's a
Yeah.
great community to be in. It's a community that helps each other. It's a community that wants to grow
Hmm.
and has the ability to grow. And so, yeah, it's a definitely a great industry to be in, especially being as recession resilient
Hmm.
that it is. I don't want to say anything is recession proof.
Right.
Definitely recession resilient.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely, through all the ups and downs, storage has done pretty good.
Yeah. I like it.
Absolutely. And it's funny, me and one of the other owners, my partner Brian, every time we see new projects being built, like, we get excited. My wife's
Yeah.
like, "It's just a building." We're like,
Yeah.
"No,
Oh, yeah.
that's,
Yeah,
that's,
it's
that's
exciting.
more than just a building. That was a nice one." Or, "Oh, I want to see this project."
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
want.
and there's some really good stuff out there. I mean, when you look, and I some builders, and just like, wow, they're just doing such a great job and making it look beautiful also from the outside. And because a lot of times before, people are like, oh man, you guys, it's an eyesore. Not anymore.
Not anymore, because projects have now, because real estate has been so valuable,
Yep.
projects are now going up rather
Yes.
than out. And then not only is it going up, we're trying to get out of the industrial areas.
Yes.
We're now trying to have the look that fits in commercial areas,
Yes.
business areas,
Yep.
to where, and then we have multi-use components now that have
Hmm.
uh, a um, a retail component, or even some with a housing component. There's
Yes.
a project in downtown Oakland that has retail, storage, and housing,
Yeah.
same building. And so it's definitely, with the projects moving up rather than out,
Out. Yep.
multi-level rather than spread out, it changes the whole dynamics, changes the whole look.
Hmm.
And these are really beautiful projects that are being
Yeah.
built that fit the landscape of new developments within.
Development. Yeah. And that's going to be key, right? To being relevant in wherever we go from here.
Yeah, it's not just walls and brick walls and doors, it's
Right.
glass and
Yeah.
and like all the
Art,
art.
artwork.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's art. There's a lot of architecture components to it
Yes.
now, to where it's like there's this beauty component to it.
Yeah. Alex, it kind of reminds me of a story because I had this guy years and years ago, built one of the most beautiful storage properties I've ever seen.
Mhm.
And he had a truck and everything. But he had a competitor that was just a little about a mile away. And she filled up her store, drive up gravel store before he did.
Oh wow.
And he was wondering why. But when every times we called multiple times, it's skill check, we were calling, and their managers were spending like 30-35 seconds on the phone, which was meant like, how much are your 10 by 10s? And then there was a total. And then they went somewhere else, right? They didn't really sell what they had. I'm like, okay, even though you have the Taj Mahal of self-storage, your people aren't telling about it.
Yes.
It's all just about price. So you've got to figure out whether, the people that you're serving, and it was a nice community, but still he had a devil of a time trying to get some occupancy, good occupancy. And he struggled because he just could not get over the fact that you've got to train those managers. Those people have got to love people. They weren't. Yeah, I would have cleaned house and started with people that actually could talk on the phone and wanted to talk on the phone and sell.
Yeah, you got to build value. If the
Yep.
first thing that comes out of the CSRs and managers' mouth is the price,
Yeah.
you lost the battle right
Right
there.
away.
Yeah,
Yep.
because then people don't understand that every place is different. We're not all the same,
No.
and so you've got to build that value. That price should come at the very end, after
Yeah.
you already got a chance to build the value.
Exactly.
Ask the proper questions.
Yes.
The first thing you should be doing is asking the customers questions, so you can figure out what is it that they need that you could solve.
Yes.
You know,
Yes, that's really what we're doing, is we're solving their storage needs. And sometimes they don't want to sit through a 20-minute. I will say I used to do SureGuard. Do you remember SureGuard?
I
Yeah.
do.
So they had 1,000 stores and we used to mystery shop all their locations. And their average length of call was over 15 minutes.
That's pretty long.
It is too long. I kept saying, you guys sit down. I mean, it's okay. It's okay if it wasn't so scripted. I
Yes.
mean, if it was,
If there's dialogue going back and forth, then that's understandable. But if it's just the CSRs and the managers just talking for 15 minutes,
yeah,
yeah,
it's not any good. And
no.
so I told him, I said, I think there's a hybrid here we could work with that would be better than what you're doing now. And so they did. They worked with me and they said, hey, our rentals are up. We're doing better with less requirements on, and all I did is eased up on what they had to say and how they had to say it, not so scripted. And they
Yes.
really liked it and they did much better. And then they got sold or taken over. I really appreciate your time today and just, shooting the bull about storage. But I think so many people want to hear what you do, and especially with units, how different it is from, the normal kind of conventional storage that most people are in.
Mhm.
But when you find a hybrid or something that's interesting, that I like to show off what you do, but I also like your attitude about self-storage, and I enjoyed listening to you in Hawaii. So I thought, I want to talk to you
Wow, I
on
appreciate it.
camera, just because it's, if we don't share what we're doing, I don't know. I just feel like it's better to share things. And just even listening the other day to Ann Ballard, I was like, dang, I gotta work on these numbers a little bit more, because she's so good at that. And it just and I think that's what's so beautiful about going to, I mean, I've been to so many trade shows and stuff, and there's a lot of things I sit through that I know. And then, but if I could get one nugget out of that, you know, even if it spent an hour doing something, you thought, oh, or it inspired me to get back on doing something better. And you, when I listened to you, I thought, you know what, and I made notes. There were things I thought, oh yeah, I need to work on that, or we can work on this. And then the last one was get Alex on Skill Checks YouTube.
Nice. I'm like glad to do it. I'm really I've always been we've been a customer of you guys for a long time,
Yep.
for many many years, and for some of our properties.
Mhm.
And you guys are such a great company. I'd
Thanks.
love to be a part of what you guys are putting together, and like being able to kind of work with you guys and get more information out there, get more exposure out there. No, I'm thrilled to be able to do
Good.
this with you.
Good.
I,
And maybe
so
they can find us live if we could work on the SSA or CSSA to let us do a session together. Because I think sometimes, I'm just saying, I like, hearing your opinion and my opinion, and our experiences. And that sometimes in a presentation, it's like, wow, that was really cool, because, you kind of got both of their sides of it, or how they both have done it differently. And it's
exactly, you get
right.
two different perspectives. You get
Yeah.
a lot more context provided, and then hopefully it leads for people to have these aha moments
Yeah.
or takeaways, and then
Yeah.
create some action items from it.
Yes. And that's important, isn't it? So, well, thank you very much again. And if how can people get a hold of you if they want to talk to you?
I've not only am I one of the owners and operators of Units Portable Storage in the San Francisco Bay Area, but also we have Hawaii San Francisco Development Company that has multiple self-storage facilities throughout Northern California. You could either I have email at alex@unitseastbay.com or alex@hawaiisf.com. Or you can reach me directly at 510-918-0961. Or you can find me on LinkedIn as well.